You know I cry easily, but when Dumbo isn't even coming close to make me tear up, there's something wrong.
Fly, Dumbo. Fly. Baby of mine.
Servus Freunde, my name is Jimmy Cage and Dumbo is the newest film in Disney's long line of live-action reimaginations of their own animated classics. And you have to put live-action in quotation marks because movies like The Jungle Book or the upcoming The Lion King are basically also almost completely animated. One of their first was Alice in Wonderland in 2010, which I think was a huge misstep, but it made over $1 billion worldwide, which was certainly one of several reasons to give director Tim Burton another shot at a new adaptation. And Dumbo, like Alice before, seemed like a pretty perfect fit. Its setting is the circus, and its story revolves around an outcast, who is laughed at and locked out. Elements that fit right into Burton's wheelhouse. Dumbo was the fourth animated feature film by Disney. It came out in 1941, and even when you watch it almost 80 years later, it is still a wonderful, heartfelt animated classic. And a true testament to visual storytelling. And it's an extremely high bar to cross. But many of Disney's classics are, and if they find a new and exciting way to tell a well-known story, just go for it. And in the case of Tim Burton's version of Dumbo, it's still staying true to the heart of it, but it also tells the story from a different perspective, introducing completely new characters and expanding it a lot. The original is one of Disney's shortest animated features with just 64 minutes. The new version is almost 2 hours long. I don't think it needed to be this long, but it's okay. Now before I go into more detail, let's cut right to the chase. The new Dumbo has its fair share of heartfelt moments, and it's pretty hard not to feel at least something for that little elephant that's just missing his mom. There are also some really fun performances that I will talk about in a second, and some charming moments every now and then. Overall though, I thought Dumbo felt rather dull and artificial. But I have to admit that I'm kind of biased towards a certain kind of film. Dumbo has been filmed entirely on a soundstage, meaning not even the outdoor scenes were shot outside. Now this isn't automatically a bad thing. First of all, it is just a bigger challenge to make your world come to life. There are many examples, even complete decades of filmmaking, where it's part of the charm. Old Hollywood movies were barely filmed on location. Instead, most of the scenes were filmed with sets either on a soundstage or in the studio backlot. But in those cases you still get physical elements that have a certain presence. But modern movies depend much more on digital effects, and of course that can work wonders as well. I'm still baffled by the idea that everything in the recent Jungle Book was done on a computer. But the talent involved and the effort put into it made it happen. I think a heavy emphasis on digital effects can also work when you have a very heightened, very specific style you are going for. When something is clearly recognizable as fake, but it's an integral element of that style. Take Speed Racer for example, or 300. But to bring it back to Dumbo, unfortunately this was one of those cases where from the beginning it just didn't feel right to me. The movie opens up with a rather charming little train scene that's clearly paying homage to the train ride in the animated one. It already felt a bit off visually, but it incorporated some unreal expressionistic elements like turning the texture of a tunnel to the colors of a circus tent, which was neat. But once the circus train is arriving at its destination and we are about to get sucked into this world, I couldn't shake the fake feeling of it all. You see a vast outdoor shot with lots of different elements in it. The sky, tents, many people around that are all doing something. And it doesn't come together in a way that makes me believe this picture. Burton went very expressionistic in many of his films, and that artificiality, like in Batman Returns or Sleepy Hollow for example, was always something I gravitated towards, but I think he's one of those filmmakers who doesn't really work that well with digital technology. I think his vision isn't gaining anything meaningful from it, but it suffers. After a long first act, the film takes us to this big amusement park, and that's exactly the stuff I want to see from Burton. Well, actually, I mostly want to feel some melancholic, fairy tale-like emotions, but from a visual standpoint speaking, it's the right setting. And as a kid, I would have probably liked this setting a lot, but as an adult, this is the point where I say that I'm slightly biased because I couldn't buy into this digital jumble. And since it's a big production, I can't just let it slide that easily. The combination of green screen, rather soft-looking 3D, and some very rough effects doesn't suck me into this world, it does the opposite. Now of course the film's biggest effect, its biggest attraction is that beloved little elephants with the giant ears. And at least in that matter the film can deliver for the most part. Though it is still a little bit off-putting to see Eva Green ride a flying elephant. Unlike the animated movie, which focuses solely on Dumbo and his new friend the talking mouse Timothy, the live-action version doesn't feature talking animals. This one is much more about the human characters, and some of them I enjoyed and some were quite annoying. Unfortunately, all of them are rather underdeveloped. Colin Farrell plays the father of two young children, and he's just coming back from World War I at the beginning of the film. He has lost his left arm, his wife has passed, and he can't ride his horses anymore. He's put in charge of the elephants now, and he tries to be a good father. To be completely honest, I'm not 100% sure how I felt about the character and the performance. On one hand, I adored his simple good-heartedness and his shy persona. On the other, he felt a bit too sappy, and I wasn't sure if it was the character that felt uncomfortable, or if it was Colin Farrell who seemed to be a little bit lost in the film. The three other big stars in this are Eva Green, who does her part with the little of a character that she got, Danny DeVito and Michael Keaton. Now, those two I enjoyed a lot for the most part. DeVito portrays the head of the circus, and similar to Farrell's role, he's also rather good-hearted, even if he's cruel and devastated at first when he sees the giant freakish ears of Dumbo. But DeVito gives him enough flair and his character is grounded enough that he's definitely one of the better. Unfortunately, in the second half he gets very much pushed to the background. Michael Keaton, on the other side, is really chewing the scenery as the evil businessman Vanderveer, which is a lot of fun if you don't mind some overacting. He's a clear-cut, one-dimensional bad guy, but Keaton's performance injects a lot of humor in it. The two newcomers, Nico Parker and Finley Hobbins, play Farrell's children Millie and Joe, and they are a clear weak spot. Both of them are really bland, with the boy not having any personality whatsoever, and the girl, though having at least some traits, was even worse. One of the very first things she says when asked why she isn't playing some part in the circus is that she doesn't want to be recognized for her looks, but for her mind, and that she wants to be a scientist. Now hold on, there's nothing wrong with the attitude, but it feels so forced here, and it doesn't go with the film's approach at all. First of all, her delivery is pretty bad, and I don't mean to insult a young girl who just started acting, but I think Burton is to blame for his direction, as well as the screenwriter for the dialogue. There are more instances where Millie is saying exactly what a scene should make you feel, than just let the scene talk for itself. She's often stating the absolute obvious, and she's doing it in a very wooden, emotionless way. One should look at the movie by itself, but in moments like that you can't help but think about the storytelling of the original movie and how the emotions came out much more naturally. But the bigger problem than the forced nature of this science girl approach was the fact that it's only tell but not show. Okay, give her big dreams, give her passion, that's totally welcomed, but please incorporate that into your story then. She's all about science? Great, then let her do something with that. Let her invent something that's needed in the story, for example. As you know, Dumbo first needs a feather to fly because he thought that's the only way to do it. Providing Dumbo with feathers is the main thing Millie's doing, and for the longest time they aren't even questioning it, which is the opposite of science. I'm probably overreacting a little bit about this, but it really annoyed me. I'm also not so sure if this whole science angle is really fitting that well in a movie about an elephant who can fly because of his big ears. The film also features a lot of different circus artists, and they are an integral part in the film's climax and its overall message. Again, this is where you can feel some of that Burton touch. This group of misfits against an evil corporation, with the big amusement park in the film clearly resembling Disneyland it's hard not to see some meta-irony in it all. The problem I had was a bit reminiscent to my feelings towards The Greatest Showman. Both films want to portray these outsiders, these freaks that are much more human than the people who turn out to be the real monsters. But in both stories they only play rather marginal roles. They feel underdeveloped and too sidetracked to make any meaningful emotional impact. When a movie focuses a little bit more on them, like in a pretty wonderful early little song sequence, it's nice, but overall it's not enough. And speaking about not enough, when we first heard that Tim Burton would do Dumbo, most of us were very curious what he would do with the famous pink elephant scene of the animated movie. Of course he had to do something with it. Well, he didn't do enough. Maybe I'm missing something, but the scene, which is probably less than a minute long, could be cut completely from the movie and it wouldn't make a difference. Overall, Dumbo was a constant series of small hits and many misses for me, and I was beginning to wonder who had written the screenplay. Well, it was Aaron Kruger, the co-writer of the Ghost in the Shell adaptation, and the one who is single credited for the screenplays of Transformers: Dark of the Moon and Transformers: Age of Extinction. Now, I like that the story of Dumbo stayed simple when it comes to the core emotions, but it's also very undercooked, generic and not powerful at all. So in German I'd say, Dumbo ist leider nur Durchschnitt. Da hilft auch ein noch so süßer kleiner CGI-Elefant und ein paar unterhaltsame Darbietungen alter Burton-Veteranen wie DeVito und Keaton nicht viel weiter. I give Dumbo 5 out of 10. It's more like 5.4, but I don't do that. Alright, that's it like always. Comment below and let me know what you think about Dumbo. And also let me know what is your favorite Disney live action reimagination. You can hit me up on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram simply at TheJimmyCage. And if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up, share, subscribe, whatever you like. And make sure you hit that bell for Life to Tell.